The galactic council chambers shimmered with gold leaf tech and organic crystal, a cathedral of logic, where empires discussed war, peace, and profit. Representatives floated in anti-grav thrones, slugs, feathered serpents, gas-based intellects, and machine minds fused with flesh. They were ancient, arrogant, and sure of one thing: humanity was a mistake. Councillor Gillax of the Vorth Dominion slammed his tentacle on the echo plinth. They defy integration. They breed chaos. They weaponize emotion. The human species must be neutralized before it destabilizes another quadrant, murmurs rippled. Species that had ruled for millennia suddenly wore expressions, if you could call them that, of fear. Councillor Tessie of the Mind Weavers coiled her 3 necks. Their outposts are spreading like a plague, and they've reverse-engineered FTL tech faster than any recorded species. A flickering AI diplomat from the Kryn Interlink interjected. They turned a mining AI into a warship brain and captured a Class 9 dreadnought. In 6 weeks, Gillax roared. And yet you hesitate? At the center, High Speaker Rox floated silently. The speaker was a being of pure neural plasma encased in living stone. "Attack humanity," he finally said, his voice like cold metal scraping over stone, "and you declare war on chaos itself." Some laughed, others fell silent, because they all remembered what happened on Valaris 9. That was the first time the Council sent a fleet to discipline a human colony for violating exobiotic sovereignty. They expected surrender. Instead, they got wreckage. 3 Council destroyers were turned into scrap within 4 minutes. No survivors. The humans didn't use bigger guns. They used traps, hacking, and rage. "They won't stop," Councillor Gillax snapped. "They think they're special." They scream, "We're only human," like it's a war cry, like it means something. And then, as if summoned by fate, a new signal echoed through the chamber, a council emergency alert. Everyone turned. A hologram blared to life. Smoke, fire, a council battleship, the Resolute Sun, was spinning out of control above a human-controlled moon. On screen, a human voice came through. "To the Council of Galactic Order. This is Commander Lee Carver of Earth's 7th Fleet. You fired the first shot. We just returned it. You want our surrender? Come take it." Silence. Then Rox, ancient and quiet, whispered something that made even the war-hungry pause. "They're not just surviving." He paused. "They're winning." Back on Earth, Carver pulled off her helmet and wiped the blood from her brow. "They thought we'd kneel," she muttered, standing over the disabled remains of an alien general. "We're not the ones who should be afraid of war." Behind her, soldiers, humans, wounded, scarred, and furious, raised their weapons toward the stars. Because if the Council wanted war, they were about to see what it was, meant to fight humanity. The debris of the Council's flagship still burned in orbit, a broken reminder that Earth was no longer a distant, irrelevant world. It was now a problem, one the Galactic Council had never imagined would rise so fast, fight so hard, or hit back so ruthlessly. Commander Lee Carver stood atop a ridge on the scorched moon of Elira 3, where the battle had taken place hours earlier. Her armored boots were caked with ash, and her black visor was cracked across the edge from the last explosion. Behind her, a line of human soldiers tended to the wounded, dragging makeshift medkits across the rubble. "You know," said Sergeant Malik, limping up to her with one arm hanging out of its socket, "for a species that thinks emotions are weaknesses, they sure scream loud when they die." Lee didn't laugh. She just stared out at the Council wreckage that still flickered in the sky. "They came here expecting us to beg." Malik spat into the dust. "They expected another colony to crush." "They forgot we're not colonists anymore," she said. "We're soldiers now." A siren wailed in the distance. Short bursts of static. Earth code. 3 long, 2 short. Incoming signal. Priority Alpha. Lee raised her wrist pad. A distorted voice cracked through. Carver, this is HiComm. Damaged comms. Full alert. You are to return immediately to Solnet base. We've received a declaration of cleansing from the Council. She froze. A declaration of cleansing. That wasn't war. That was genocide. The Council had only issued that 3 times in recorded galactic history. Each time it meant total extermination. Planetary sterilization. Species deletion from existence. They weren't just attacking now. They wanted humanity erased. Malik's face dropped. They're actually going through with it? They're scared, Lee said, voice flat. And scared empires destroy what they don't understand. She turned, her voice rising. Mobilize everyone. Get our wounded to orbit. We're going home, back in Council space. Chaos rippled through the once calm corridors of power. Dozens of systems received the message. Cleansing Directive 019H. Target, Species 11234A. Homo sapiens, Terran origin. Entire fleets were activated. Billions of credits were shifted to war manufacturing. Propaganda aired on every planetary network, showing clips of violent humans, historical Earth wars, and graphic battle footage. The message was clear. Humanity is a disease. Councillor Gilax stood before the chamber once again, triumphant. They respond to strength. Now they will witness extinction. But Councillor Tisi, despite being from a rival faction, hesitated. They adapt too fast. They should have fallen at Elira 3. Instead, they improvised, countered, and humiliated us. They were lucky. No, she hissed. They were angry. And that was what worried her most. Earth, days later. Commander. Carver stood inside SolNet High Command, deep beneath the Andes Mountains. Above her, the Earth defense grid shimmered in the ionosphere, a net of satellites, kinetic shields, and AI-driven pulse batteries. The room was packed. Generals, scientists, diplomats, the best minds Earth had left. Even the old UN flag hung beside EarthGov's crest, a symbol pulled from history now made relevant again. General Takeda stood at the center, a man forged in battlefield silence. We have a problem, he began. The Council's combined fleets are 27 times the size of ours. They have superior tech, more ships, and ancient strategies, but they underestimate us. He pointed at a holomap displaying multiple incoming fleet trajectories. They think we'll defend Earth like it's sacred. But that's not our move. Lee crossed her arms. We're not defending Earth. No, Takeda nodded. We're going to take the fight to them. A murmur rippled through the room. Operation Iron Fang, he continued. We're deploying 4 deep strike units into Council territory. Guerrilla warfare. Hit and fade. We cripple supply lines, hijack comm stations, and, most importantly, we make them feel fear. Someone scoffed in the back. You want us to raid the galaxy's most powerful empire with 4 strike teams? Takeda's face didn't change. They've never fought humans in their own homes before. 2 weeks later, Lee and her strike team were huddled inside a cloaked dropship, approaching a supply moon orbiting the Council's inner ring, Veilis 2, a logistical hub critical to their fleet movement. The plan was simple. Breach atmosphere, hack the orbital array, plant a code virus that would transmit false fleet data, and blow the munitions dump sky high. Simple. On paper. Malik sat beside her, checking his gear. You ever get tired of being called insane? All the time. The AI pilot, a sarcastic voice named Ripley, chimed in. Good. Because what you're about to do is literally rated suicidal by 3 military AIs, including me. Thanks for the vote of confidence. I just hope your species appreciates irony, Ripley added. You're about to commit terrorism to prevent genocide. Neat little package of moral complexity, shut up and land. Lee muttered. The dropship slipped through Veilis 2's orbital shields, masked by a debris field from a recent council drill. As the ship descended, smoke from refineries and tower lights stretched across the horizon like a living machine. They hit the ground, running. The human strike team fanned out. 12 soldiers, trained in deep space infiltration, exo-sabotage, and zero-gravity combat. They wore Earth armor patched with stolen alien tech, moved like ghosts, and carried weapons designed to mimic council signatures. Infiltration successful. Within minutes, they'd overridden a security node and fed false signals into the surveillance grid. Malik hacked into the mainframe while Lee kept watch. 2 minutes, he whispered. I just need to reroute the data port. A noise. Footsteps. A squad of insectoid guards rounded the corner. Their eyes glowed cyan. Their rifles buzzed. Lee didn't hesitate. She fired the first shot. It wasn't clean. It was brutal. Up close. Loud. Personal. Her blade dug through one of their carapaces while Malik dropped the others with pulse shots to the brainstem. Blood sprayed. Chitin cracked. Bodies hit the floor. Lee breathed hard. Keep working. Malik didn't flinch. Uploading now. A second later, the entire Council Fleet Logistics Network registered Earth's false data, false coordinates, false ship counts, false fleet deployments. The virus spread like wildfire. Council fleets began diverting to ghost sectors. Supplies rerouted to empty star fields. Confusion bloomed in the enemy ranks. And then, Lee pulled out the final piece. A kinetic grenade the size of a melon. Time to make some noise! She tossed it into the main munitions vault and ran like hell. As the team scrambled back to the dropship, the ground behind them erupted. Blinding light, a sound like God screaming, and a shockwave that flipped an entire transport barge. Ripley greeted them with sarcasm. Nice fireworks. Shall I prepare your medals or your funerals? Get us out of here. As they rose into orbit, the fires of Veilis too lit up the stars. A day later, across the galaxy, Council commanders screamed into their comms. Entire fleets had jumped to the wrong sectors. Supply routes were shredded. Critical weapon stations were offline. The virus had spread so fast, it was like their own systems had turned against them. Gillax howled in fury as he watched the data reports. They're in our space? They hacked our warnet? Counselor TC was silent, watching the newsfeed. Explosions, sabotage, Earth code signatures embedded in their most protected databanks. This wasn't a message, she whispered. This was a demonstration. Gillax slammed his limbs on the floor. They're monkeys with guns! This is impossible. And that's when the emergency beacon sounded. Another attack. Another council station, gone. Another message from Earth. You declared cleansing. We declare resistance. We are humanity. Come and try us. The stars over Earth shimmered with death. From the dark side of Mars, humanity's orbital command stations watched council fleets twist and stumble through confusion, like blind titans tripping over their own feet. The virus had done more than reroute supply chains. It had exposed just how overconfident the Galactic Council had become. But it wouldn't last. Commander Lee Carver stood before a wall-sized display deep in SolNet command, the red haze of warning lights painting her face. They've started recalibrating, said General Takeda, arms folded. Some systems already purged the virus. They'll adapt. They're not dumb, Lee replied, just arrogant. Big difference. Takeda turned. Which makes them dangerous when cornered. Behind them, a tech officer called out, Incoming deep space signal. It's Council encrypted, broadcasting wideband, non-targeted. Looks like propaganda. Put it through, Takeda ordered. The screen shifted. A familiar face filled it. Counselor Gillax, his gray skin slick and swollen, 4 yellow eyes burning with contempt. Behind him stood dozens of council species, silent, grim. To the humans of Earth, you have spilled council blood. You have mocked our peace and poisoned our systems. For this you will burn. But we offer you one chance. Surrender Commander Carver. Deliver the mind responsible for this terrorist campaign, and Earth will be spared extinction. The message cut off. Silence. Then a low laugh came from Malik, watching from the corner. They want you now, huh? Lee didn't flinch. That's not a peace offer. That's bait. They're scared of you, Takeda said. Of what you represent. A human who hits back, who wins too late to undo that, she said softly. That night, Lee sat alone in her bunk, armor peeled off, fatigue clinging to her like a second skin. A file blinked on her personal tablet, a video from her sister, June Carver, sent from a civilian outpost on Europa Station. The Council had attacked that station 3 months ago. Lee tapped the file. Her sister's face appeared. Smiling. Young. So much softer than Lee had ever been. Hey, if you're seeing this, it means I'm probably not around anymore. I left this just in case. You know, the universe did what the universe always does. Crash and burn. I just wanted to say, I'm proud of you. I know you always carried the world on your shoulders. You were never the crying type, even when Mom died, even when Dad left. You just clenched your jaw and kept marching. But remember, okay? You don't always have to fight alone. You don't have to carry all of humanity by yourself. You're not just our sword, Lee. You're our heart, too. Don't forget that the screen went dark. She didn't cry, but she didn't move for a long time either. 3 days later, Earth lost Titan Base. A full orbital array gone in under 9 minutes. Council dreadnoughts, massive, self-aware behemoths, descended like gods of destruction, immune to jamming, shrugging off Earth's orbital mines like dust. They didn't even bother with warnings. A total cleanse. Over 200,000 human lives lost. The footage hit Earth's global net in minutes. Families wept, streets filled with protests and silent marches. The Council thought this would break Earth's resolve. It didn't. It lit something older, deeper, a fire not even space could contain. They've dropped the mask, said Takeda grimly, pointing to the orbital trajectory of the next wave. No more diplomacy. They're targeting the core. Earth, Mars, Luna, and the Europa Belt. Lee stood beside him, eyes locked on the screen. Then it's time we stopped being subtle. Takeda looked at her. We hit their Council homeworld. The room froze. You're serious, Malik said, stepping forward. You want to raid Carex Prime? That's suicide. Lee didn't blink. Exactly why they won't expect it. Takeda frowned. What would you even target? She pointed at the map. Their communications lattice. If we can breach it, even briefly, we flood their systems with unfiltered human transmissions, real history, truth, chaos, no propaganda barrier. You want to start an information war? Malik said. She nodded. The Council controls its people by censorship and fear. We show them the truth, that Earth isn't a monster but a survivor, that their leaders started this war. It might not win the war, Takeda muttered, but it'll tear cracks into their empire. Lee said nothing. She just pulled her gloves tight and stepped toward the exit. Prep the team. Operation. Black Signal was born in a bunker below Earth's Antarctic Defense Station. No sleep, no ceremony, just cold air, tired soldiers, and silent determination. The dropship they took wasn't military. It was a salvaged Council merchant vessel, reprogrammed, coated in plasma stealth, and packed with one thing the Council had never truly understood: human resolve. Ripley, their ever-sarcastic AI pilot, voiced the obvious. You realize if they detect us, they'll vaporize us before we reach orbit, Lee answered dryly. Then don't let them detect us. The jump to Carex Prime was dangerous, even suicidal. Council space was dense with surveillance drones and patrol fleets, most of which had recently gone on high alert thanks to Earth's recent activities. But sometimes, chaos creates opportunity. Thanks to their virus weeks earlier, the Council's internal threat matrix was flooded with false positives. While fleets scrambled to ghost systems chasing imaginary enemies, Earth's most dangerous strike team slipped through. Carex Prime looked like a jewel of power from orbit, a planet built on conquest, gleaming spires, sky lanes packed with silver crafts, giant statues of long-dead council emperors gazing down at their people with smug, silent judgment. And above it all hovered the communications lattice, a spiderweb of satellites and relays that processed the Council's propaganda across the galaxy. It was beautiful, and about to become a battlefield. The team landed in the slums of the Undercity, ignored zones where the lesser species lived in cramped, forgotten quarters. The people stared as Lee passed. Some curious, others fearful. Few had seen a human in the flesh. She turned to one of them, a small feathered child, no older than 10. "Where's the lattice core?" The child hesitated, then pointed silently toward a glowing tower on the horizon. "Thanks, kid." They moved fast. 3 of her team took sniper nests on nearby rooftops. Malik and 2 engineers began rigging the portable uplink they'd carry into the lattice's command node. Lee herself carried the payload. Echo Fire, a viral program packed with every censored truth the Council had ever buried. Battle footage, screams, civilian deaths, hidden treaties, whistleblower confessions, human messages of peace, hope, and desperation, all twisted by the Council into lies. Lee planned to undo centuries of silence in 60 seconds. They reached the tower. Security was thick, bioscanners, drone turrets, genetic locks. They'd planned for all of it. As the team hacked the perimeter, Council guards rushed in, some armored, some with SI weapons that scorched the air. Blades clashed, guns roared. Malik screamed in pain as a laser tore through his shoulder. "Keep going!" Lee shouted, dragging him behind cover. She reached the core door, inserted the drive. The system fought back. AI firewalls, logic loops, quantum locks. But she was human, stubborn, brilliant, enraged. And in less than a minute, Echo Fire uploaded. A blinding white light flashed across the sky as the lattice faltered. Then, across every Council planet, every screen, every implant feed. Humanity spoke. They saw Carver's sister begging for peace before being bombed. They saw Earth's children in underground bunkers as Council fleets fired above. They saw humans mourning alien civilians, ones the Council had used as meat shields, and they heard voices not of war, but of resistance. A message played on loop. "We did not start this war, but we will not die in silence. We are human, and we will be heard." By the time Council reinforcements arrived, the team was gone, vanishing into back alleys, bleeding and bruised but not broken. And Carex Prime would never be the same. Riots erupted in lower sectors. Council citizens began asking questions. Truth had broken the dam. And Commander Lee Carver, once just a soldier, had become something else entirely. A symbol. The sun never rose again on Carex Prime's lower sectors, not because the planet rotated slowly, but because the Council shut off the light. They called it Containment Protocol 44. Power to the Undercities was cut. Transit tunnels were sealed. Access drones deployed automatic gas dispersers. Civilians, innocents, were now considered contaminated by external ideological corruption. Truth had spread, and the Council responded the only way tyrants ever do, with fear and fire. High above, in the upper crystal districts where the elite still dined in floating spas and sipped the blood fruit of extinct planets, Counselor Gilax watched the city burn through a reinforced shield dome. "Release the cleansers," he said coldly. "Erase the sectors." "But Counselor," said his assistant, a low-born Strillian with soft features, "some of the infected are children. Gilax didn't even turn. Infection doesn't care about age." And the fires began. Lee Carver watched the footage from a stolen patrol ship orbiting the dark side of Carex Prime. She leaned against the bulkhead, jaw clenched tight, lips pulled into a line so thin it might have disappeared. She'd meant to shake their empire. She didn't mean for children to burn. Malik sat across from her, bandaged shoulder twitching under the stress of acceleration. "They're nuking their own people now." "They're not people to them," Lee said, voice like ash. "They're pawns." Collateral Ripley, their ship's AI, clicked softly before speaking. "Incoming secure signal. High-com priority. You're going to want to see this." The screen blinked. General Takeda appeared, face pale, drawn, and lined with more weight than a soldier should bear. "Carver, it's time you come home. You need to see this with your own eyes." When Lee stepped onto Earth's surface again, months after launching Operation Iron Fang, it no longer looked like home. Skies once blue were now bruised purple from atmospheric scatter. Military drones buzzed like mechanical mosquitoes. Refugee camps spilled across the equator, where the Council's orbital bombardments had failed to penetrate, but left psychological scars that stretched wider than any crater. Lee was escorted through a steel corridor to Level 6 of Solnet's underground stronghold. That's where she saw it, the Council's superweapon. Takeda stood beside a hologram the size of a whale skeleton. It rotated slowly, glowing with lines of unnatural green. Alien symbols spiraled around it like runes of death. "This is what we pulled from intercepted deep space transmissions," he said. "They call it the Valari protcol." "Translation?" Lee asked. "It's not a weapon in the traditional sense," said Dr. Hari Singh, lead xenotechnologist. "It's a reality phase engine. It doesn't destroy a planet. It erases it, like it never existed." Lee stared at the floating projection. Her mind reeled at the concept. "Like, it rewrites time?" "No," Dr. Singh said. "Worse. It removes the timeline, deletes the gravitational memory, the cosmic echo. It makes your species a glitch in history." Takeda leaned forward. "They're going to use it on Earth." The plan was already in motion. Council engineers had completed the final component of the Valari protocol on the remote planet of Theraxis, hidden deep within a gravity well the size of a dying star. It was the last place humanity could reach, and the only place that mattered now. Lee looked at the star map in silence. "You expect me to stop a planet erasing device? With one team?" Takeda's eyes hardened. "I expect you to try." Malik stood beside her. "If we don't go, no one comes back." Lee stared at the map again. Her home, her people, her sister's memory, her team's sacrifice. She drew a long breath and turned. "Prep the Valkyrie. We're going to Theraxis 5 days later. Theraxis system." The Valkyrie emerged from hyperspace like a blade from the shadows, its stealth coating humming under solar friction. The planet was a black orb, cloaked in electromagnetic fog and swirling death storms. It was a graveyard of physics, a place where gravity bent sideways and time felt slower than thought. Ripley crackled. "I'd say welcome to hell, but hell doesn't bend space like this." Lee stood at the command deck, armored again, expression unreadable. "Scan for heat signatures." A pause. Then, "Got them. Council engineers. Hundreds. The Valari device is active. 14 hours until ignition." Lee didn't blink. Then we've got 14 hours to steal a miracle. The insertion was violent. The Valkyrie didn't land. It crashed, slicing through a magnetic storm and skidding across black rock before slamming into a trench of frozen gas. The hull screamed, but it held. Lee and her squad exited fast. No time for subtlety now. They advanced on foot, each carrying phase disruptors and kinetic grenades. The air was thick with static and nausea. Time rippled like waves. They had to force themselves to remember who they were. Ripley's voice buzzed through earpieces. "You're closing in." The device's outer shell is protected by a temporal distortion field. You'll need to anchor yourselves with quantum stabilizers, or you'll forget how to breathe. "Copy," Lee said, moving in. The field shimmered like boiling glass. They stepped through it. And for a moment, everything disappeared. No time, no memory, no war, just silence. Then a heartbeat. Lee's. And suddenly they were through. The Valari protocol stood before them, a machine the size of a city, pulsing with alien light and strange mathematical rhythm. It hummed like a choir of ancient computers singing to the void. Council engineers ran across its surface, oblivious to the humans in the shadow of the storm. Lee raised her rifle. "Let's end this." The firefight was unlike anything they'd faced before. Council guards wielded weapons that shredded time, bullets that aged metal on contact, grenades that reversed gravity mid-blast. Malik was hit in the leg by a chronobolt and screamed as time accelerated the wound, aging it to rot in seconds. Singh injected him with a stabilizer, but his leg was gone. "Keep moving," Lee yelled, dragging him forward. "We don't stop until that core's offline." They reached the primary spire. Singh cracked the code. Ripley synchronized the override key. Malik, bleeding and pale, planted the payload. 3 minutes until detonation. Then they heard it. A voice, not from a mouth, but from everywhere. "You think this ends with one failure? You are not a species. You are an error in evolution. And errors must be corrected." Lee looked up. Hovering above the Valari was Counselor, Rox, encased in his obsidian throne, surrounded by psychic drones, his mind reaching across dimensions. Lee raised her weapon. "You came all the way here to watch us die?" Rox's voice slid like oil over her mind. "No, Commander. I came to make sure you watch yourselves disappear." He fired. The air fractured. Lee dove, slamming Malik out of the way as the ground ruptured behind them. Ripley's voice cracked. "Payload ready." One shot at this. Lee looked up at the core. It pulsed. Ready to fire. She climbed the spire with bleeding hands, dodging blasts, firing wildly. A drone sliced her arm open, another shattered her visor. Blood ran into her eye, but she reached the core. Pulled the pin, shoved the charge inside. Rox screamed, "You don't understand." "We were cleansing the galaxy. You were chaos, unpredictable, untamed." She looked down at him, broken and furious. "We're human!" And the world exploded. She woke up in darkness. Then light, then pain. She was aboard the Valkyrie. Singh leaned over her. "You did it. The Valari is gone. Council forces pulled back. We stopped them." Lee blinked. "Malik?" Singh smiled. "Alive, legless, angry, standard condition." She laughed weakly. Outside the ship, stars burned bright. And far away, on Earth, people were already dancing in the streets. Because humanity had done the impossible, they fought the most powerful empire in the galaxy. And won. The stars were quieter now. Not peaceful, just silent. Like a breath held too long. Like a storm that hadn't passed, only paused. It had been 11 days since the Valari protocol exploded above Theraxis, vaporizing one of the most feared weapons in Council history and crippling a major sector of their inner defense ring. The shockwave wasn't just physical. It was political, philosophical, spiritual. Across the galaxy, something broke. Entire species, long subjugated by the Council's order, saw the footage. Saw a human woman tear through elite guards and sacrifice everything to save a planet the Council called primitive. Her face was now everywhere. On stolen billboards, projected onto city domes, whispered in underground safe houses across planets Lee Carver had never even heard of. They didn't call her Commander anymore. They called her the Flame. And fire spreads. In the humid undercities of Caravorn, a mining world on the edge of Council space, riots broke out. Hundreds of Trossan workers, sick of centuries of forced labor, turned their drills on their overlords. They stormed outposts, chanting an unfamiliar name in a harsh, broken accent. Flame Girl, Fire Warrior, Humaflame. They didn't care who she really was. What mattered was what she represented. Resistance. Inside SolNet HQ, deep beneath the Andes Mountains, General Takeda sat with a small group of Earth's most trusted strategists and soldiers. His face was tired, older than it had been a month ago. Too many names now sat on the memorial wall. Too many close calls, too many broken pieces of a species trying to hold itself together. Lee sat across from him, one arm in a cast, one eye patched from the spire blast at Theraxis. Malik sat beside her in a hover chair, his prosthetic leg still initializing. "What's the Council's response been?" Lee asked, her voice low but sharp. Takeda grimaced. "They've split." She blinked. "Split?" "Not officially," said Dr. Singh, tapping a glowing display. "But 3 core species have called for internal reassessment of military strategy. 2 others are openly questioning Jilax's leadership." Malik chuckled. "So we shook the throne hard enough to crack it." "Hard enough that some want to burn it," Singh added. "There are whispers now of a secession movement." Lee raised an eyebrow. "From the Council?" Takeda nodded. "They're calling it the fracture block. Species tired of war, tired of being ruled by fear. They've sent feelers. Feelers? Encrypted messages. They want contact." "Quiet contact. Risky," Malik muttered. "Could be a trap." Lee leaned back, wincing at the pull in her ribs. "Or it could be the start of something bigger." She looked at Takeda. "Send a reply." Carefully. "We'll meet them a week later. In the binary shadowed orbit of Vel 9, Lee met the fracture block's envoy. It wasn't a counselor, not a politician. It was a teacher, an old female Scythery, her feathers dulled with age, her translator crackling as she spoke. "You were supposed to die," she said. Lee tilted her head. "So were a lot of us." "I taught history for 70 cycles," the Scythari said. "They made us teach that humans were unstable, that your kind burned planets and drank oil and couldn't be trusted." "Not totally inaccurate," Malik muttered. The Scythari chuckled. "But then I saw your message. The one in the lattice. I saw your sister." Her voice softened. "I saw the part where she said, 'We're not your enemy. We just want to live.'" Lee felt something shift inside her, a crack in the wall she'd built. "So what do you want from us?" The Scythari's eyes shimmered. "Help us break the Council." Back in Council space, Jilax seethed. He stood before the Supreme Chamber, surrounded by silence. Once, these halls echoed with the blind applause of species afraid to defy him. Now, he stood alone. "The humans are weak," he roared. "Their worlds burn. Their ships are few. We have the numbers." No one answered. He glared at Counselor Tisi, who sat coolly across the chamber. "You disagree?" "I question your strategy," she said, "and your sanity. They infected our systems, sabotaged our fleets. They humiliated us at Carex Prime." Tisi raised her brow. You call it humiliation. I call it revelation. Perhaps we are not gods. Perhaps they are not vermin. You would bend the knee. To apes? No, she said calmly, but I no longer wish to destroy them. Gilak slammed a clawed fist into the marble floor, cracking it. They will fall. With or without you. And just like that, he walked out. Behind him, silence again, and a single word whispered among the shadows. War criminal. Meanwhile, rebellion spread like fire. On the ocean world of Solemn, Council Navy ships defected and joined with rebel fleets. On Niorva, prisoners overthrew their captors and sent messages of alliance to Earth. Each day, Lee read new reports from planets she'd never seen. Each day she received messages, not just from humans, but from aliens, thanking her, begging her, warning her. They all thought she was the leader now, but she wasn't. She was just a soldier who didn't quit. One night, alone in her bunk, Lee received a message flagged private priority. No source, no signature. She opened it, and her blood ran cold. You think you've won? You think the fire will save you? Look to your stars, Flame Girl. The real storm hasn't come yet. Then a set of coordinates. Lee stared at them. She checked the system. Her breath caught. They pointed to Araban Station, a research outpost, a place that should have been abandoned. She stood and called Takeda. We have a problem. The next day, the Valkyrie launched again. Lee, Malik, Singh, and 2 recon operatives, Grayson and Lin, touched down on Araban, a forgotten rock at the edge of nowhere. They found the station intact, but powered. Inside, the lights flickered. The air smelled like metal and mold. Ripley's voice buzzed over comms. Picking up low-level signals. Something's alive in there. They moved through the halls, gun barrels forward, nerves frayed. And then they found it. A lab. Still warm, still active. Cryo chambers, dozens. Inside each one, humans, or what was left of them. Some had extra limbs. Others had exposed neural grafts. Their eyes flickered in unnatural rhythms. Not asleep, not dead. God, Singh whispered. They were experimenting. Malik found a terminal. The last entry made hours ago, not by a human, but by a Council AI. Project: Nova Mind status, stable. Humanity's greatest weapon is chaos. We have decided to control it. Phase 2. Release scheduled. Lee turned, fists clenched. They're making hybrids. Suddenly, the door behind them slammed shut. A siren screamed. Cryo chambers hissed open, and one of the figures stepped out. A woman. Or once a woman. Her face was human, but her skin shimmered with metallic pulses. Her eyes glowed violet. Her voice crackled as she spoke. You left us. Lee froze. The voice was familiar. Too familiar. June? The hybrid tilted her head. We were reborn. You tried to burn the world to save it. The Council found another way. June, it's me, Lee, your sister. I had a sister, the thing said. But she let me die. No. Lee said. Heartbreaking. I tried to save you. I fought for you. You fight for ghosts, June said, stepping forward. I am not yours anymore. And her hands lit up with searing energy. The first blast missed Lee by inches. A pulse of raw energy tore through the corridor wall behind her, melting steel like candle wax. She hit the ground hard, rolling behind a rusted console as the air filled with the scream of alarms and the crackle of reality-bending power. Across from her, the thing that used to be June Carver took another step forward, her violet-lit arms pulsing with unstable kinetic force. Her skin shimmered between flesh and alloy, her voice layered. One part human, one part something else entirely. I remember your voice, June said slowly. It called me from the wreckage. But no one came. No one ever came. Lee's heart pounded. Her throat tightened, caught between command instinct and the ache of guilt. I didn't know you were alive. The council told us the Europa outpost was destroyed. I saw the footage. They didn't destroy it, June said. They harvested it. Piece by piece, they took our minds apart like puzzles and put them back wrong. Malik crouched beside Lee behind cover, his face pale with horror. This is insane. She should be dead. She is, Lee whispered. This isn't her, not completely. You're right, June said. I'm something better. And she raised her hands again. Lee shouted, Fall back! Just as another pulse surged toward them, ripping through the floor. The team scattered, Grayson and Lynn laying down cover fire, Singh frantically trying to access the control systems. She's tethered to the station's core, Singh yelled over the comms. That's how she's staying stable. If we can shut it down, we might be able to sever the augmentation feedback loop. And if we can't, Malik barked, pulling Lee behind another bulkhead. Lee loaded a fresh magazine into her rifle. Then I'll put her down myself. As the battle raged through the halls of Araban station, fragments of memories began to claw through Lee's mind. June's laugh in the snow, her awkward birthday cards, the time she tried to make cookies and nearly set the apartment on fire. And now here she was, twisted, weaponized, turned into something built for warfare. Not by accident, not by aliens, but by the Council. This wasn't just a betrayal of peace, it was personal. Grayson was the first to fall. A drone caught him mid-run, lasered through the heart. Lynn screamed, dragged his body behind cover, and threw a pulse grenade that staggered June's form just long enough for the team to retreat to the command chamber. Ripley, Lee said into her comm. Status? I've been trying to slice the system, but their AI firewalls are stitched into the hybrid neural net. If we shut it down too fast, it could kill the host. Or worse. Lee glanced at the cryopods still glowing in the shadows. More hybrids. Waiting. We don't have time to play surgeon, she said. We disable this station now. Malik, bloodied and out of breath, looked at her. What if there's still something human in her? Lee met his eyes. I hope there is. Inside the control chamber, Singh located the main neural anchor, a towering crystalline column at the center of the floor, pulsing like a heartbeat. Energy arcs swam across its surface, connecting to dozens of conduits wired into the floor, walls, and cryopods. She's in the system, Singh muttered. Her consciousness is half digital now. She sees through everything, every camera, every sound wave. Lee's jaw tightened. Can we cut her out? If we overload the anchor, yes, Singh said, but she'll feel it. It'll fry her neural interface. She may survive physically, but mentally, she could shatter. Lee nodded slowly. She knew what that meant. Malik stood beside her, hand on his rifle. You don't have to do this. I do, she whispered. And then the door blew open. June stepped into the chamber, floating inches off the ground, surrounded by flickering drones and a shimmering heat haze of electromagnetic energy. Her face was still familiar, but her eyes no longer blinked, no longer wept. Why did you come here? She asked, her voice hollow. Was it guilt? Pity? Or did you just want to finish the job? Lee stepped forward, lowering her weapon. I came to bring you home. There is no home, June snapped. Not anymore. The Council showed me the truth. Humanity is broken. You only understand pain, fire. War. No, Lee said. We understand survival. That's why we fight. That's why we never give up. June laughed, a sound sharp as glass. Then die with them! She raised her hand, and the room exploded in light. Lee sprinted through the smoke, dodging arcs of lightning, firing suppressive rounds at the drones swarming through the air. Malik went left. Singh dove behind the core with a fusion cutter, sparks flying. Now, sing, Lee shouted. I need 30 seconds. We don't have 30. She turned, and June was in front of her, face to face. The eyes flickered just for a second. Lee, June whispered. Lee froze. Is it really you? It's me, Lee said, tears finally breaking through. I'm here, June. I never stopped looking. June's fingers trembled. Then her body twitched, violently, like a marionette pulled by invisible strings. They're inside, she gasped. They're watching. Listening. I can't hold it back much longer. Then her eyes turned white, and she screamed. Singh slammed the override chip into the anchor. The core pulsed once, twice, and then detonated. The wave hit like a sledgehammer, knocking everyone to the ground. The lights went dead. The drones dropped. The cryopods dimmed. And June collapsed. Smoke filled the chamber. Silence returned. Lee crawled toward her, heart pounding, lungs raw. June lay still. Her skin was cracked with dark veins of dead circuitry, her breathing shallow. But her voice, still hers, whispered, Did I do good? Lee took her hand. You were better than good. June smiled, and died in her arms. Back on Earth, the funeral was silent. No monuments, no flags, just a field of trees where Lee buried her sister, far from war, far from memory. A small plaque bore her name, June Carver Sister, fighter, human. Lee stood there long after the others left. The war wasn't over. The council would come again. They'd build worse things. They'd make new monsters. But they would never again do it unseen. And they would never again do it unchallenged. At Solnet HQ, Takeda watched Lee return from Araban. He handed her a sealed file. What's this? The truth, he said. Recovered council data, from June's memory bank. Plans, projects, names. She opened it. Inside were thousands of documents. Project Chimera, Project Ghostskin, Project Edenfall. Each one a blueprint for extinction. We shut down one station, Takeda said. There are more. Lee looked at the wall, the memorial now stretching across 2 levels. We find them, she said. We end them. Later that night, alone again, Lee opened a personal message. Not from the council, not from HighCom, but from a planet she'd never heard of. A young alien girl stood in front of a homemade flag. On it was a human flame, drawn in chalk. The girl smiled. My name is Kari. I'm from Palos 4. We saw your message. We heard your story. We are not afraid anymore. We are ready to fight. Lee watched the message 3 times. Then she smiled for the first time in weeks. The council had woken something ancient. Not fear, not hate, but hope. They called it the Ashlight War, not because of how it started, but because of how it changed everything. A week after Araban Station fell and Project Nova Mind was exposed, rebel forces across 4 sectors rose in synchronized strikes. Council comm lines were severed, convoys burned, supply stations exploded into orbiting graves. The human message had spread beyond Earth, beyond even Lee's intention. And it wasn't just humans anymore. Trossans, Sithari, Velkun, Olari, species once too afraid to lift their heads, were now lifting weapons. And at the heart of every uprising was a face. Lee Carver. She didn't want it. She never asked for it. But power has a way of landing on the backs of those who survive long enough to carry it. In the steel halls of Solnet HQ, surrounded by flickering consoles and war maps blooming with red dots, Lee stood before a new hologram, one displaying an unexpected development. What am I looking at? She asked. Dr. Singh leaned forward, adjusting his cracked glasses. An anomaly. Deep space. Edge of the Valari void. That's no answer. It's a signal, he said. Faint, buried beneath encrypted layers we almost didn't catch, not from the council. Something. Older Lee's brow furrowed. How old? Takeda answered from the shadows. Pre-council. Everyone turned. He stepped into the light, face grim. I've seen fragments of this code once before. Buried in ancient records, they called it the Eater of Silence. What is it? A weapon. A relic from the time when the council was still young. Something they sealed away. Why? Takeda looked directly at Lee. Because they were terrified of it. Hours later, the Valkyrie tore through space again, heading for the Galari void, a sector so quiet, even gravity seemed to forget to exist. No patrols, no beacons, no life. Lee, Malik, Singh, and Lin were back in the field. They didn't smile anymore. They didn't speak unless it mattered. Too much had changed. The galaxy had broken open, and behind its politics and blood something deeper pulsed, something hungry. Ripley, the ship's AI, snapped into comms. Approaching coordinates, reading. Nothing, no stars, no light, just a black hole of sensors. Visual? Lee asked. Transmitting now. And the screen filled with ruin, a structure the size of a moon, floating, broken, alien in shape, angular, jagged, shimmering with a pulse that didn't blink but throbbed. Singh gasped. That's not Council. That's something else. Ship, Malik guessed. No, not even close, Singh pointed. It's alive. They landed on a protruding platform, metal twisted like bone, etched with symbols that shimmered in and out of reality. The silence was unbearable. No hum, no wind, just pressure. A wrongness in the air, as if space itself disapproved. We shouldn't be here, Lin muttered. This place wasn't meant to be found. Lee stepped forward anyway, because someone had to. Inside, the structure was colder than death, and not just in temperature, in soul. Light bent wrong. Time slowed. The walls whispered in tongues no translator could parse, until they reached the core, a chamber the size of a cathedral, and in the center, suspended by chains of solid light, was a figure, or what was left of one. Its body was humanoid, just barely, limbs elongated, skin black as a starless sky, and its mouth stitched shut by glowing wires. Lee stepped forward. What is it? Then the chamber shuddered, and the being opened its eyes. None of them spoke, because the voice they heard didn't come through ears. It came through everything. She comes, flame, born of rage, sister of the broken spark. Lee's breath caught. Who are you? The being pulsed. I was voice before silence. I was war before council. I am chained because I spoke truth. Malik aimed his weapon. You're a goddamn nightmare. No, Singh whispered, eyes wide. He's a precursion. One of the first. This is ancient AI, bioconscious, maybe even pre-organic. They feared me, the being echoed, because I warned them. The humans would return, not by ships, not by weapons, but by memory. Lee stepped closer. You knew about us? You were erased, a species too wild, too raw. They buried your history, burned your origin, but chaos does not die. It learns the lights flickered. Now, they resurrect what they cannot control. Hybrids, machines. But they forget. Flame does not obey. It spreads. Lee felt her blood run cold. They plan more experiments. They build a second Valari. Deeper, in a system untouched, where minds are harvested, and reality bends where, she demanded. I will show you. But first, unchain me. Everyone froze. Ripley's voice crackled. Lee, for the record, I strongly suggest you do not unchain the ancient nightmare. Singh whispered. He's bound for a reason. Lee looked up into the being's eyes, and for a split second she didn't see a god or a monster. She saw a prisoner. I'll unchain you, she said slowly, but you don't get a second chance. You help us stop them. Then you go back in the box. Fair little flame." She raised her rifle, aimed at the light lock. Fired. The chamber exploded in light. The being dropped to the ground with a sound like thunder. The chains hissed and vanished. It stood slowly, impossibly tall, every movement like a glitch in space. But it didn't attack. It just turned toward the far wall. A portal bloomed, blue and endless. "The council builds in the dark, but your kind was made for it." It stepped into the light and vanished. Back on Earth, alarms screamed across SolNet. A new signal, a new weapon, a new facility detected on the dark side of the Drossian cluster, a system known to be uninhabitable. But now? Now it pulsed with energy signatures worse than Theraxis, worse than Valari, and something else. Human brainwaves. Lee sat with Takeda. "We have to go," she said. "It could be a trap. Then let them trap me." Takeda frowned. "You're not a soldier anymore, Lee. You're a symbol." She stood. "No, I'm still a soldier, and I'm going to finish what they started." That night, before departure, Lee stood at her sister's grave again. The wind howled. She lit a match, watched the flame dance. "I'm coming, June," she whispered. "I'll burn down every lab they've built. Every lie, every monster." She let the match fall into the wind and turned to the stars. The Drossian cluster was dead space, a place without gravity wells, without light. A forgotten sector buried by the Council centuries ago, declared physically unstable and uninhabitable. That was the official line. Now it pulsed with life and death. Lee Carver watched from the command deck of the Valkyrie, her jaw set, eyes locked on the Isa. Impossible. A structure larger than any Council station ever recorded, orbiting a collapsing star like it fed on it. The second Valari protcol. Only this time, not just a weapon. It was a factory. Ripley's voice cut into the silence. Reading thousands of life signs, majority non-human, many partially human, augmented, manipulated, rewritten. Lee said nothing. She didn't need to, because this was it, the Council's final card, a weapon built not to destroy humanity but to replace it. Inside the Valkyrie, Malik, Singh, Lin, and 3 new soldiers, hand-picked from Earth's elite resistance forces, checked their gear one last time. Nobody smiled. Nobody joked. Even Ripley's sarcasm was gone. This was the last mission. Everyone felt it in their bones. Takeda's voice came through the hololink one final time. "We have confirmation. Counselor Gillax is on site. Oversees the operation directly. We believe he's accelerating the hybrid program using captured civilians and AI fragments. You are authorized to engage. Do not leave that station standing." Lee nodded once. "Understood." They dropped under cloak, punching through radiation storms and psychic shielding that screamed into the brain like nails in the skull. Lin bled from her nose halfway through. Singh nearly passed out. Ripley kept stabilizers at max. When they landed, it wasn't on a platform. It was in flesh. The facility wasn't just metal. It was organic. Living tissue fused with steel. The floor was soft. The walls breathed. Lights didn't shine. They twitched. "Jesus Christ," Malik muttered. "They weren't building a station. They were building a god." Lee raised her rifle. "Then let's kill it." They moved through the corridors fast. Mutated hybrids shuffled in containment cells, some whispering, some clawing at the glass, some smiling without mouths. Many had been human once. Others were spliced with creatures the Council had declared extinct. Every face was a warning, every hallway a tomb. And then they found it. The Chamber of Rebirth. Rows and rows of pods, cryogenic but still twitching. Some half-grown, others fully developed, all linked by neural cords to the central spire. And above it, floating, monstrous and proud, Counselor Gilax. His body had changed, no longer the swollen, pale warlord of old. Now he was armored in nanite plate, fused with biomech limbs, his face a mask of inhuman precision. He turned slowly as they entered. "Flame Girl," he said with mock admiration. "Come to watch evolution?" Lee stepped forward, weapon ready. "I came to end your nightmare." "You're too late," he sneered. "The new species is already forming. Not flawed like yours. No empathy, no fear, no weakness." She raised an eyebrow. "Like you?" He roared and descended. The battle was chaos. Gilax moved like gravity didn't exist, each strike faster than the last, backed by tech grown from centuries of stolen. Evolution. Lin went down first, snapped mid-scream by a kinetic whip. Malik covered Singh, firing at weak points as the room flickered with fire and blood. Lee engaged Gilax directly, dodging, rolling, firing. Every hit shook her bones. Every near miss scorched her skin. He was too strong, but he was also arrogant, and arrogance is predictable. She feigned a stumble. Gilax moved to finish her. And that's when Singh hacked the chamber's core. The pods behind him, thousands, began to twitch and open. Gilax froze. "No." He turned. The hybrids opened their eyes, blank, soulless, broken, but not loyal, because the programming wasn't finished, and chaos doesn't wait. They attacked him, as the hybrids swarmed, biting, clawing, short-circuiting his frame. Gilax screamed, a sound that didn't echo, didn't fade, a sound that stayed in the air like a scar. Lee dragged Singh away, his arm shattered. Malik followed, limping from plasma burns. They ran, back through the halls, through the breathing walls, to the reactor core. Ripley guided them. "This is your last shot. Overload this. You take down the station." "And ourselves," Malik said. Lee looked at him and smiled. "Since when has that ever stopped us?" They reached the core. It pulsed red, alive, surrounded by tendrils and logic bone. Lee shoved the detonation charge into its center. Singh keyed in the override. The countdown started. 4 minutes. They turned to run, and the ground exploded. Gilax, still alive, burned, broken, half of him gone, but alive. "You die with me," he snarled, dragging his mutilated body forward. Lee stood firm. "No," she raised her pistol. "This time you die alone." She fired point blank into his head, and watched it shatter. They sprinted back to the Valkyrie, bodies failing, lungs burning. Ripley opened the bay doors just as the station began to collapse. Metal screamed, light burst, and the Valkyrie tore through the void, just as the entire facility erupted behind them, like a dying god screaming into the dark. Gone, forever. Back on Earth, days passed, then weeks. The Council fractured completely. Half its member species seceded. The rest turned on each other. Riots consumed their capital worlds. Uprisings burned through systems once thought eternal. And Earth? Earth stood tall, not untouched, not unscarred, but free. Lee Carver walked through the ruins of Solnet HQ, now being rebuilt with help from allied species. Malik rolled beside her in his hover chair, a medal on his chest and a cigar in his mouth. "You know they want to make you president, right?" Lee shook her head. "I'm a soldier." "You're a symbol. That's not the same thing." "No," Malik said, exhaling smoke, "but both scare the hell out of tyrants." That night, Lee sat by her sister's grave again. No speech, just silence. The stars twinkled above, one brighter than the rest. A flare of light. Hope. She whispered, "We did it, June." A breeze blew past, soft, almost warm, and she knew somehow she wasn't alone. Across the galaxy, children in rebel camps learned her name. Not as a killer, not as a savior, but as the flame, the one who burned the lies, the one who refused to kneel. And deep in forgotten systems, others still whispered warnings. They attacked Earth once. They called them primitive, said they were too emotional, too broken, too unpredictable. And now they fear the humans, because they learned the truth too late. You don't fight fire, you feed it, or it consumes you.